Hey you guys, this is Psychopoweranger once again, and I'm here to bring you all sorts of awesome updates and my first build that's going down. So obviously, the first thing that we're going to talk about is the fact that I no longer have hair. So, what does this mean for you? Absolutely nothing, but it does mean that I no longer have hair. Secondly, as we all know, there is now what I would like to say the pre-orders, which is going to be coming out on April 10th. That is sweet. Why? Because you'll be able to get into all the betas that are coming out. So why not just pre-order and get it going like that? And why not be in all the weekend betas? You'll also get a 3-day early entry before the game comes out. What does this also mean for you? You can reserve sweet names and just experience the game and get ahead of it. Which will also be sweet for World v World because you will crush all the noobs who come in 3 days later. So anyways, let's go ahead and talk about the build that I just made and we'll get it going. So this build is highly based off of Cloak and Dagger, which is the double dagger for the thief. It will most likely make it so that you can be stealth multiple times and just completely confuse your enemy over and over. It's more of a 1v1 type of build, but it definitely can be used to face multiple people due to the fact that you can go invisible all the time. Let's go to that build editor and check out what we can do. Alright, so here we have it. We're at the thief screen. So let me just give you a rundown of the utilities, elites, and healing skills. We have Hide in Shadows, which you vanish into stealth and regain regeneration. This will come in handy in a second, and I'll go ahead and tell you why it's so important to have this of all the heals. We have Infiltrator Signet, which passively grants initiative regeneration, which is mainly why you want it, but it can also allow you to shadow step to a foe, and you can use that for that reason too, but you really want to keep it for the passive, because if you did not know, when you use a skill of a Signet, you no longer get the passive until it's back off cooldown. We have Signet of Agility. Once again, you want it for the passive. This build is all about crits. You really need crits to make it thrive, so you want it for the passive, but if you need the Vigor, go ahead and grab it. For those who do not know, Vigor will increase your endurance regen by 100%, and endurance is what you use to dodge. Next, we have Devourer's Venom. What is this used for? It's for the immobilizations. You will grab this all the time, and you will actually get this more off cooldown than normal, and I'll go ahead and explain that in a second. And for the elite, we have Basilisk Venom. And yet again, this will be coming off a cooldown more often than normal. And I'll go ahead and explain this in a moment as well. This will turn them into stone, which is an immediate stun. Now for your dagger attacks, the one that's most important is Cloak and Dagger, which when you stab your foe, you vanish to stealth. And you also leave them vulnerable. And this will become very handy because not only does it do this, but it stacks, so you'll keep lowering their armor. This will continue to increase your strength while lowering your enemies. And since you'll be in stealth all the time, it's hard for them to counter you with like weaknesses and stuff because they won't be able to hit you as often as they'd like. The other skills come in handy, but for the most part, you'll be spamming Cloak and Dagger as your main attack. Another one that may come in use is Leaping Death Blossom for the obvious triple bleed. When you're in stealth, you get a skill called Backstab, which does a ton of damage. And like I said, here we have it. We have Backstab, which you leap towards your foe and you do double damage, and it also gives you some more initiative. This comes in handy, and even if it gives you just one initiative back, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Alright, now we're at the traits, and this is what's extremely important to make this build work. So you get Serpent's Touch as a minor and Deadly Arts. That's not what's important. It's also to be noted that when you use Steal as a thief, it's a small shadow step of its own. Keep this in mind. Then we have Improved Venom as the one major trait. Stealing has a 33% chance to recharge all your Venom skills. As you can see here, Stealing has a 30-second cooldown. So you have a chance to recharge your Venoms twice. It's not 100% guaranteed, but it can definitely help you and it's worth taking the points. Though another good choice would be Quick Venoms, which would just reduce all this cooldowns by 20%. But this would not reduce your elite skill because it isn't considered a utility. And finally, a decent one would also be Lotus Poison, which would weaken targets when you poison them. Reason being is whenever you steal from them, you would poison them. Alright, now let's get into the beef of this build. Now I don't quite understand what it means by precision over 90% health, but I only assume that means it gives you more precision when you have over 90% health. And if it's the enemy, same case. What this means is you'll have a higher critical chance when their health or your health is higher, depending on what this exactly means. Either way, this will come in handy in a later second, and I'll explain this in just a moment. First, I grab Hidden Killer. This is extremely important for the build, and there's no variation for it. It gives you 50% chance to crit while you are stealth, and this will play in just a second. The second minor in critical strikes have a chance to restore initiative. The more times you crit means the more times you'll be restoring your initiative. This is extremely important because this will keep refunding yourself so that you can keep using Cloak and Dagger. Next, you do flanking critical chance. Better chance for critical strike while flanking. Since you're going to be using backstab a lot, that means you're going to be flanking them a lot, which means you'll have more chance to crit. And if when you crit you do double damage as well, that would just be amazing. There's no reason not to take flanking critical strike. Finally, first strikes. Initiative increases critical damage. What does this mean for you? Now you'll have even more crit when you use your first Cloak and Dagger. What does this mean? You will have an even greater chance to get back initiative to use another Cloak and Dagger again and again and again. So now back to Keen Observer. This being said, with that last trait, your first strike will have even more chance to critical strike. It might even be 100% at this point, so it's definitely worth taking. And this last one, there's some controversy in my mind which one will be most important. I will definitely choose this when the game actually comes out, but I'm thinking it might be Executioner, which you deal extra damage to your target when it is below 25% health. But some other mentions are Combo Critical Chance, which your third slot, which in this case would be Death Blossom, will have an increased critical chance. But see, this build isn't built on Death Blossom, so there isn't much reason to use it in the most cases, but we'll see. And Signet use. Gain initiative when activating a Signet. My mindset when I made this decision, you could use your Signets to boost your initiative just enough to get some more Cloak and Daggers out. Now we're at Shadow Arts. When your health drops below 25%, you release Blinding Powder. What Blinding Powder does is it will stealth you and your allies around you and blind your enemy. This just comes in handy, and I'm glad that it's a minor in general. You have Hidden Thief. When you shadow step to steal, you will also turn stealth. The next minor is Meld with Shadows, and your stealth skills will last 1 second longer. What does this mean for you? Most stealths are around 3 seconds. This minor will make your stealths last 4 seconds. Infuse with Shadows. Gain 2 initiative when using a skill that stealths you. Now Cloak and Dagger will only cost you 3 initiative to use. This is huge. Number 1 in my opinion, and should really be your first to grab, not your second. Couple that with Backstab, which costs 0 initiative. That means it'll at the very least cost you 2 to use. Couple that with Infiltrator Signet, which increases your initiative regeneration. It will cost you around 1.5 to use, I would assume. Finally, couple that with the chances to get critical initiative. It may even cost you 1/2 to use, or even 0 to use, depending on your luck, your crit chance, and all of that nature. Let's be honest, this build can dominate your opponent. Nextly, you'll be constantly in Might. Why? Hidden Assassin. Hidden Assassin, whenever you stealth, you gain Might. Since you're going to be going invisible all the time, you're just going to be doing extra damage. What Might does is just boosts your damage. And finally, this is why you choose the heal that I told you. You regenerate health while you're stealthed with Cowardly. When you use the regeneration, you'll also be regenerating even more with Cowardly, on top of every time you go invisible from Cloak and Dagger. And you can stay invisible for 4 seconds every time you go. So let's be honest, you'll just be regenerating health all the time. Some other mentions though, for Shadow Arts as your last skill could be Fleet Shadow. You move 10% faster while you're stealth. So when you go stealth, you can make that movement that you need to do to back attack your opponents. But when you're stealth for 4 seconds, you probably won't be needing to use that very often. Cloaked in Shadow. Stealing blinds nearby foes. Every time you go invisible, you're blinding your enemy. This will only be helpful in a team type orientation. You won't need to be blinding your enemies because you're going to be invisible all the time. There's no real reason to take it from what I can think. Obviously, I haven't played the game, but this will definitely come in handy if you're playing in a 5v5 type situation. And if that wasn't enough initiative for you, you can go and grab Patience, which would encourage you to stay stealth as long as possible because you'll gain even more initiative regeneration, probably down to 0.5 of a second. And that would be ridiculous. Instead of every 1 second you gain initiative, it'd probably be around every 0.5 of a second beginning initiative whenever you are stealth. So those are my decisions, but as a final note, my build of choice is Improved Venoms with the possibility of Lotus Poison, Hidden Killer, Critical Flanking, Executioner with the possibility of Signet Use, Critical Haste, Combo Crit Chance, Hidden Thief and Shadow Arts, Infusion of Shadow, Cowardly with the possibility of Fleet Shadow, Patience, and Cloaked in Shadow. Heal skill is Hide in Shadows. Utility skills are Infiltrator Signet, Signet of Agility, Devour Venom, and the elite is Basilisk Venom. I take double daggers as my main, and short bow for utility ranged. I hope you found this build to be as sweet as I thought. I got plenty of other interesting builds just like this one on the way, so if you're really interested, go ahead and subscribe because these are going to be coming out a lot. PvP and making builds is my main pleasure about video games, and I will definitely be making lots of these and putting them up, and talking about other meta builds when the game comes out. So definitely make that subscription if that's what you're into, because that's what I'm going to be focusing on a lot. If you'd like to just see this build in general, I'm going to be leaving a link down below. You can go ahead and check that out as well. Sadly, the link for this tool is kind of broken, so I can't really send you the thief build that I've actually made. I will go ahead and put that in this video description when the tool is fixed, but right now it seems to be bugged and broken. You can expect another one of these builds to come out within the week, and probably even earlier than 7 days, so go ahead and keep that going. All in all, with the stealths and the mobilizations and the stunts with this build, you will be stopping your enemy and confusing them over and over. The fact that you can just run circles around them without them ever even knowing is just, it's gonna feel good. Anyways, you guys, thank you so much for stopping by, and thank you for watching my video. If you did like it, give it that thumbs up, really helpful. If you'd also like to give it a favorite and keep this build for when the game comes out, this would be a pretty cool one also to be used with multiple people with the same looking avatar, because in World v World, there was talk that you won't even be able to see names and stuff. So really, you just look like the same person over and over. And if the same person is jumping around, just think of how confusing that is for PvP. It's a legitimate psyche trick, so it's definitely worth trying out with your friends. If you do like my channel, give it that subscription. That'd be so way bomb. I would love that so much. I love seeing those subscriptions. Leave a comment down below with a build that you think is pretty cool, or if you like this build and, you know, just general talk. Think I'm dumb, you know, whatever it is, just go ahead and tell me about it. Thanks so much for watching. Bloopers. Which will also be sweet for Obi. And for the elite, we have Basilisk. Let's start talking about the build that I'm about to talk about. That would make sense, talking about the build that I'm talking about. Is you could use your signets to boost your